Hey guys, welcome to Session 8 of Linux System Administration Intermediate Level. As always, I am your instructor, Kevin Downs. This is a course by coding-bootcamps.com. Today, we're going to be talking all about the Samba file sharing facility. So in our last course, we covered a lot about server security. We went over security overview, maintaining system security, server access, physical security, network security, security tools, port probing with Nmap, intrusion detection and prevention, PAM security modules, scanning the system, maintaining file integrity, using firewalls, and introduction to Firewall D. Today, we're going to be going over configuring Samba for Linux to Linux Unix file sharing, configuring Samba for Linux to Windows file sharing, using the Samba client utility to transfer files, and mount connect Samba shares to Linux and Windows clients. So let's go ahead and talk about what Samba is. Samba is a free software re-implementation of the SMB CIFS networking protocol and was originally developed by Andrew Tridgell. Samba provides file and print services for various Microsoft Windows clients and can integrate with the Microsoft Windows Server domain either as a domain controller, which is a DC, or as a domain member. As of version 4, it supports Active Directory and Microsoft Windows NT domains. There's only one file you need to concern yourself with when configuring Samba, and that's going to be the etc samba smb.conf file. So out of the box, this is a file that might be rather daunting, and like always, I like to start from scratch. So I would do the following, guys. You can copy the samba.conf file and make a backup of it. So you do copy etc samba.conf to etc samba.conf.backup, okay? And then you're just going to go ahead and remove this original conf.file, and then you just touch and create a new blank one, okay? We're not going to go through that, okay? Simply because if we check out our next slide here, let me actually go back to our PowerPoints. We're going to talk about all this stuff here that we can put in this new blank file. There's a lot to type in there, okay? And a lot to go over. And it would take a long time for me to actually type all this up. And I don't want to make you guys wait through that. So it'd be easier to just kind of talk about what these would go in your file. So feel free to do this if you'd like, okay? But just know that at the end of this, even if we did do this, all you're going to have is a simple minimal conf file, okay? So just be aware that this is how you kind of just do your own Samba file. But I will show you that Samba file. So we can go to cd etc /samba /smb.conf. Oops, I think I spelled it wrong. One sec. Actually, we don't want a CD to it. We just want to, let's actually do a VI on it. Actually, guys, I'm going to show you something else here. I'm going to do something called view. View is nice because it acts as Vim, except you can't actually edit anything. You're just viewing the file, and it lets you actually scroll around. So we're going to do that instead. So we're going to do etc samba, and then samba.conf. There we go. All right, so we're kind of looking in here. We notice we got some global settings. We have a home setting, printer setting, some variables for the printer. Okay, so this is kind of what a Samba file looks like. And so you can see here, it kind of tells you that you can run this test parm to verify that the config file is correct after you modify it, just to see if it'll actually work. Let me see, we have some mask settings here under create mask. Okay, so it's just different configurations you can set up in the Samba file when you bring files in or send files out. Okay, and guys, cups here, if you've never seen cups before, this is the printer for Linux. All right, cups has to do with printing for Linux. Okay, let's go ahead and quit out of this file. So escape :q exclamation point. Let's go back to our PowerPoint here. So if you did delete that file and you were to put some new settings in there, this is what it would look like, all right? So this is a useful way to set up Samba. So we have the NetBIOS name, which would be NetBIOS name. We can put our work group, set the security to user, encrypt passwords to yes. We can say where to store the Samba password file, what IPs are going to be set up to actually share files, any comments we want to put on the files when we bring them over, what path we're sharing the files to, and if they're writable and what mask we want to set. Okay, and if you want to lock the files. This is a very useful configuration to set up for Samba. So let's talk about configuring Samba for Linux to Windows file sharing. So if we want to access Samba shares from Windows clients, we would have to see our new server appear in the My Windows Network places. So we can do this by looking for the shortcut on our desktop, or alternatively, we can open the Start menu and click Run, okay? Now guys, again, we can't really set this up because we don't have a Windows server to connect to, right? So this isn't something I can demo right now, but just be aware of how this actually works. Okay, so when you click Run, you can hit //server, and you can actually find the server you're looking for. And you will replace that server with the name or IP address of the machine you're running Samba server from. So a Windows Explorer window with the browsable shares from your server should open up. If you made a non-browsable share, access it using this link. You would do / the server you're looking for, and then / the share name. Okay. So Samba is a client with an FTP-like interface. It is a useful tool to test connectivity to a Windows.share. It can be used to transfer files or to look at share names. In addition, it has a nifty ability to tar, backup, and restore files from a server to a client and vice versa. So here we see some syntax for that command. It would be SMB, or Samba, client, the service name, and then a lot of different flags we can put on here. We can say what user we want to do it as. Okay, what host and port we're going to be going through, what type of tar options we want to throw on there. So a lot of different things we can do with that Samba command. So let's talk about how we would mount shares to the Linux and Windows clients. So before we were just talking about, up here, we were talking about, how we can just move files back and forth to machines. Let's talk about how to actually mount file systems, all right? So once we have established that a Windows machine has some worthwhile stuff to share, it might actually be nice to have that stuff available at our fingertips, right? So that each time we use our Linux machine, we can see this stuff on that Windows server, right? And maybe the Windows server is sharing music or video, or even better, maybe it has a software repository that we can pull stuff from, okay? So Samba client is definitely useful, but it has some undesirable things to transfer this information back and forth as we find a use for it. So in this case, if we don't want to keep transferring stuff back and forth, the simple answer would be to mount these drives on the Linux host as we would any other drive. And this is actually pretty simple to achieve. We would do the Samba mount command, 4 backslashes, the IP of the server, 2 backslashes, $/mount/thumb-o, and then the username equals my host. Okay? So pretty easy one-line command we can do. And from there, that share is actually going to be mounted on our machine. Every time we log on our machine, we can see anything that's actually contained in that file system or folder, which is great, because then we don't have to keep sharing stuff back and forth. Whatever's put into that file or folder, we can just see from now on anytime we log on. Now guys, keep in mind that when you have these kind of network shares set up, it takes some time to really bring stuff back and forth, right? And it's actually going to slow your machine down a little bit, right? Because it's having to kind of set up that connection back and forth. So just keep that in mind. It will slow your system down a little bit. Now guys, take note, if you want to learn more about Windows Server setup and management, I highly recommend taking the course below. It's going to be how to manage Windows servers, and it's going to go into a lot more depth of how to actually manage some Windows servers. So in summary guys, we kind of talked about how to configure Samba for Linux to Linux Unix file sharing, configure Samba for Linux to Windows file sharing, using the SMB client, utility transfer files, and how to mount and connect Samba shares to Linux and Windows clients. Next course, session, we're going to be talking about NFS to access remote file systems, configuring the NFS server, configuring the NFS client, and exporting file systems for the NFS server to the NFS client. Okay, and guys, NFS is just network file sharing. It's very similar to Samba, like we were just talking about. As always, follow these links for weekly and monthly plans for private tutoring sessions for system administrator management. We also have private tutoring sessions for Linux and Bash scripting. Thanks so much for joining me, guys. Looking forward to seeing you in our next session.